The round 4 of the FA Cup. Boy was it hard, boy was it tough, boy was it cold, wet and windy throughout as well. But a goal from Kelechi Iheanacho, a man who is the FA Cup's top scorer over the last several years. What a run in this competition he's had through the period when Leicester won the competition, and either side as well. His goal the difference 11 minutes into the second half, and although these two sides at opposite ends of the English football pyramid, there wasn't too much between them today, but Iheanacho's goal the difference, Matt Elliott, and Leicester are through.
Yeah, just about deservedly so as well. Half time, boys were talking, rightly so, saying listen, it's a little bit pedestrian, which it was. Second half, a little bit more positive attacking emphasis to their game. People bringing a little bit of variation. We saw that with the goal. Lewis Brunt making a run forward, set a different problem for Gillingham. They couldn't come up with the answer. Leicester looked a little bit more like it, and the game opened up as such. And it's probably on another day could have sort of extended their lead, could have made it the passage through a little bit easier, but ultimately job done, and without too many hiccups along the way, wasn't it? Brendan Rodgers would be absolutely delighted to get this one out of the way, relatively unscathed, hopefully, on the injury front, and a good spirit, a good positive, determined attitude about the team as well. Brendan Rodgers will be pleased with that also.
Happy days, job done here in Kent. Who knows when we'll be back for the first visit here in over 18 years. It's proved successful once again. Full-time score as Leicester go through to the 4th round. Gillingham 0, Leicester City 1.
Thanks, James. Yep, good news coming from Priestfield and Kent there. Leicester City through to the 4th round of the FA Cup. Matt Elliott will stay in his commentary position for the next 25 minutes or so. Matty Fryatt is alongside me in the studio, and Jerry Taggart joins us via Zoom. I'll start with you, Matty, as you're sat next to me. Job done for Leicester in the end, that?
Yeah, I think deserved. We mentioned at half-time to just up the play, up the tempo, and it was important that Leicester got the goal early into the second half, and then space opened up. Gillingham had to go for it a little bit more, and then it could have been more in the end. I don't think Gillingham asked too many questions of Leicester, and then I think with the chances as well, it could have been a bit more comfortable than what it was. But in the end, job well done into the next round, and hopefully get a kind draw. Yep,
Jerry, what did you make of it?
Yeah, I think Matt's just about covered it down, really. Job done in the draw. That's all you can ask for. Difficult time, negotiated. Only one goal in the game. That sort of tells you how difficult this tie was against the bottom side in the Football League. Doesn't matter. You're away from home. Conditions weren't great. And that just shows you how difficult, the 3rd round of the FA Cup can be against lower opposition. And it proved to be the same. No, it wasn't a classic by any means. But this tie and that result will now be confined to the history books. There'll be no headlines written, thankfully, for all the wrong reasons. And as I said, this tie and that result will be forgotten very, very quickly. But Leicester, more importantly, move on to the next round with a win under their belt.
Yeah, we were saying before, Jerry, it kind of had all the makings, didn't it, of a potential banana skin, a potential giant killing, and for maybe 50 minutes, it was looking as if it could be stretched and go really, really late, even be 0-0. But Kelechi Iheanacho stepped up, didn't he? And you said that Leicester needed to show mental strength, and that's what they did today, I think.
Yeah, I think, especially in the second half, I think you got to give credit to the defenders for this. They were just helping the ball on and putting it in the good areas, and sometimes that's all you can do. They were pushing, they went to go down, but so they had to push for the game, and then the players were making the right decisions under pressure, which was, good to see, instead of trying to manufacture playing their way out from the back, which obviously today was a massive no-no. So they played the conditions and they got their decision-making right. I don't think Gillingham, in fairness, troubled the Leicester goal too much, if we're being honest. I couldn't really see them scoring. There were a couple of half chances or half opportunities. So I think for them, 0-0 probably would have been the best result they could have wished for today. But I say, thankfully, and we talked about it at half time with the movement, and that movement came for the goal. Tielemans found a little bit of space on that right-hand side to deliver the cross, but it was really all about the movement just before that to create that space for him, from Brunt and Albrighton. And then the ball comes in, and it's a clinical finish from Kelechi. He's in the right place at the right time. If you had Tony Cuddy on here, he'd be waxing lyrical about playing two up top, and that goal sort of summed that up with Vardy and Iheanacho being in, close proximity to each other. Not quite falling for Jamie Vardy. He got a touch on it but couldn't control it. But it just falls perfectly for Kelechi, who's just a couple of yards behind him, and he strokes it in. So, yeah, again, that's all it took. That was the difference in the game. Just like it was the other night against Fulham. One goal secured the tie, and that's all that matters.
It was a classic Kelechi Iheanacho goal, Matt, wasn't it? Just instinct on his left foot, unerring finish.
Yeah, he's as good as anyone in those positions, isn't he? He's got a cool head. He processes it in a flash. Tucked it away beautifully. Yeah, I mean, it probably just needed to get it on target, and it had a high percentage chance of scoring. It was one of those, it fell so nicely for him. He made extra sure, didn't he? He put an element of risk on the finish, I suppose, by trying to put it in that top corner like he did. But such is the confidence of him, even when he's not getting a regular game. He clips it away in fine style, didn't he? In a sort of almost typical Iheanacho style. But I thought he was excellent in the second half. Bringing others into play as well. You have to say it's quite surprising that he doesn't get more game time, really, with the record as it is. I believe I'm right. I was ably informed that it was 16 goals in 22 FA Cup games. Nearly got his 17th today as well. But with his record, that he doesn't get more opportunities. But there's a number of reasons why that is, etc. But he hasn't done himself any harm, has he? Today in the second half, when he was he was not around in the first half, was he? Barely featured at all. It was a game of two halves contrast for Iheanacho, but he's right in the manager's thoughts for the weekend. The midweek game now, he must be, isn't he? For Newcastle.
Yeah, it was in that second half. You maybe, if Lewis Brunt wasn't making one of his first starts for the club, you potentially would have just given it to Kelechi Iheanacho. Do you think, Matt, that man of the match today?
For the second half performance, yeah, I think without a doubt. Yeah, there was a little bit of that leaning towards Lewis Brunt, because he's a young lad, but I thought he came in, did exceptionally well. He looked part of the furniture to me. Didn't look like someone who was having to be nursed through the game. I like him as a player. I think he's very adaptable, and he adapted to the surroundings that he was thrown into today as well. But yeah, Iheanacho was the quality performer. He was the class act, I think, today, when there wasn't too much quality on the show because of how the game was and how the conditions were. But Iheanacho's done himself no harm whatsoever at all, was he?
Do you think he dovetailed quite well with Patson Daka in that second half? Daka, he's always going to be running off that last defender. Iheanacho was able to drop deep quite often with it.
I think so, but at the same time, goals give you confidence. Tucks it away expertly well. And then after that, he went on a mazy run. I think cut past two and then unlucky with the finish. Probably not as clean as he wanted with the strike, but then just looked a different player from the first half, being quite quiet, well marshalled in the back line, and then all of a sudden space opens up and then you see a completely different player, and he's capable of doing something different to Patson Daka, Jamie Vardy, dropping in between the lines, and he's got the ability to curl one, flick one round the corner, get at players, and you see with the goal he looked completely different, and then he looked a class above in the second half and was the difference in the end. And then I think later on in the game he's picked out that outside of the boot pass, the spot to see it, and then he's just margins off Dak actually finishing himself, but all of a sudden you're looking at it thinking Leicester look a completely different side and look a threat every time they go forward, and that was mainly because of Kelechi and that confidence of getting that goal early, and then all of a sudden it opens up and you see that he's a talented player. It's whether he can do it consistently well enough, and at the minute Brendan looks at him as an option coming off the bench, but sometimes think maybe you could go to up front with obviously Kelechi dropped in and then either Vardy or Daka further forward. It's food for thought again, but then provides him maybe perhaps an opportunity to start again on Tuesday night.
It's good to see a player playing with that confidence, and do you only get that through scoring goals?
I don't think he's one that necessarily always needs the confidence, but for most forwards, scoring is the main thing, and then once you score, you've got extra bit of energy, you try things because you think, I've got a goal, I'm up here, and then mainly you'd sort of fall into your own game and start doing the things you do natural and not thinking, well, this time I didn't get past my player or I didn't hold it up because I've already got the goal behind me. And then before you know it, you're playing your own game and you can see the ability he's got, things open up, it comes from a goal, but I don't think he relies overly on the confidence, but it does help. This game was lifted and then all sorts of plays coming off outside of the boots, touches around the corner, going past 3 players, and just looked a level above, which of course he is compared to Gillingham, but first half you wouldn't say there was anything in it. Get a goal and then all of a sudden everything opens up and you think, how many are Leicester going to score at that point?
Well, we heard from, Matt said it, didn't he? And we know James said it in commentary as well. The record that Kelechi Iheanacho has in this competition, Jerry, in the FA Cup, particularly in recent seasons, is quite fantastic.
Yeah, it's quite incredible, isn't it? Really, when you analyse it, and there's always that thought, in the back of your mind, whether you're a fan or you're commentating on the game or doing the punditry, that he's there as an option. Why doesn't he get more game time? Because his goals and his goals record speaks for itself, but there's obviously something not quite right in regards to his all-round general play, and that's probably one of the reasons why he doesn't get more game time or more games from the start. He doesn't start more games. Sorry, should have said. I don't know. Again, he's a bit of a conundrum for me, Kelechi, if I'm being honest. Again, a player that possesses undoubted ability. We know that he can finish. He's a top finisher. So then the question arises, why? Why does he not start more games? Why does he not get himself in the team? Why do we not see more of him? And the best person to answer that is Brendan Rodgers. But as far as his goal scoring record is concerned in this competition, it's there for all to see. And again, that, as Matt said, it was a clinical finish, a cultured finish, and not an easy finish, as he said, to just shape it into that top corner. I think I'll probably be right in saying that probably 8 out of 10 strikers would have just tried to bury that, hit it as hard as they can, as low as they can, and as hard as they can, but not Kelechi. He finished that with aplomb, really.
He clearly has that composure, doesn't he, in front of goal? Particularly, I think he will always back himself if it's on his stronger left foot.
He has. He's got that whip, hasn't he? It's like cultured into that far corner. Saw it first half where he's just missed the upright, and that one, like Jerry said, some forwards would just lash it in. He's picked out the top corner, placed it right into there, and it's a good finish. But he's got that individual brilliance that he can create. It's just, can he do it more often? There's flashes. You think 1 minute you look at him, think that is unbelievable. Then the next, it's just that consistency in it. And I also think the formation sort of goes against him, playing the 4-3-3 with obviously one forward sort of stretching the play, and he's probably not suited as a lone forward. So then are you going to drop him in between? But possibly it might be an option playing Kelechi from wide, cutting in. It might open up that, but it doesn't seem to get too many starts, when sometimes you think, for the ability he shows or the game today, you think, why isn't he playing as more often? But like Jerry said, he's sort of a conundrum type player. He's like a maverick at times with some of the stuff he does. It's a bit of brilliance, and then other times you think it doesn't quite work, and he can have an off game and decisions aren't always quite what you'd want them to be. And then other moments you think, well, it gets you off your feet.
Yeah, what would you do, Matt, on Tuesday then, heading into that game away at Newcastle in the Carabao Cup? Would you play Kelechi Iheanacho again, considering clearly he looked like he was full of confidence in that second half?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much nailed on, isn't it? That he'll play in that. I mean, it's good to have Daka back in the fray. So Brendan Rodgers has got a minimum 3 options there in the striking position. Vardy's started the last 2, hasn't he? Came off in and around the hour mark today. Wasn't his day, but I think Kelechi gets a start, doesn't he? Probably. Don't ask me what formations, etc. just yet. It'd probably be similar to today, I would imagine. I don't think the lineup will be too different. I don't know. Perhaps a little bit stronger. When I say stronger, in terms of your regular choices. A few of them that were on the bench will probably have to against Newcastle, sort of up the ante a touch, but wouldn't be surprised if it's a back 3 again. Kelechi starts for me, yeah. Matt's got a point there. The system doesn't always go well or suit Iheanacho, does it? That lone strike role is not always his forte, but I think there's every chance that it might be a similar system and the 2 up top, and he'll get another chance to impress.
Particularly if he is maybe alongside Patson Daka. We saw him, what did he get, about 20 minutes or so, Matt, today, returning from an injury as well?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if those 2... Nice to see Daka back so quickly, wasn't it? I feared he might be out for a longer period when you see him have that tweak against Liverpool, and what did he get, 15, 16 minutes up there at Anfield. Come back so quickly is quite unusual, really, but he seemed fit and strong and robust enough, and made a few lung-bursting runs on the counter, and Iheanacho found him on one occasion, and I think almost did on a couple of others. So he looked fit and raring to go, and yeah, I wouldn't be able to disagree with you if you're suggesting that Iheanacho and Daka perhaps is the pairing in midweek.
Well, that on paper, Jerry, without keep banging that drum of those 2 up front, but on paper you'd think that would work quite well together. One in behind, one that maybe not likes to naturally drop in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's obviously an option, as Matty said, for Brendan Rodgers moving on forward to Tuesday night. As rightly said, Jamie started the last 2. Does he need a rest for the Premier League game following weekend? We'll have to wait and see, but he doesn't look as if he's carrying anything, Jamie, so obviously that's an option as well. And I think it's one of those games where obviously there's no replay in the quarter-final of the League Cup, so why not go all guns blazing? In regards to having an attacking lineup, will that hamper, or will that, if you play those 2 up front, where do you fit your Harvey Barnes and players like that into the squad, because they're normally playing that favourable system of 4-3-3. Do you put Harvey Barnes as a wing back, so on and so forth? So there's a few questions there to be answered there by Brendan. Does he change the formation, go 4-4-2? Unlikely. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, there's options there for Brendan, which is great to see in the forward lines. And at least we're going into that game where centre forwards on the score sheet and looking like he's gained a bit of confidence.
It can't be easy being a football manager, so many options all the time. You think there's a lot of injuries as well, even if you had a full squad to pick from. It would be even more difficult, I imagine.
Yeah, and it'll be a completely different game from what today was. Obviously Newcastle are going to pose a lot more questions than what Gillingham did. You can see why Gillingham haven't scored many goals. To be honest, I can't remember too many times they got out of their own half. Newcastle would be completely different. Saw it only on Boxing Day that they are more on the front foot, they do attack, and that'll be for Tuesday night, and that depends whatever Brendan decides to go with the team, the shape, etc, etc. But for today, job well done, professional. Obviously got 2 of the younger lads coming in, which was good, bit of blend. The experienced ones who maybe haven't played all the time have come in, done the job, and it's safety first really. Kalici's got the goal and comfortably into the next round with no real scares, no upsets, and job well done. Like Jerry said, it's into the history books, and hopefully can progress on Tuesday night, and with a kind draw, who knows, it could be a double cup run.
Let's talk about those younger players for a moment. You just mentioned there, obviously, Casey McAteer, Lewis Brunt. What did you make of their performances today?
I think they did well. Like I said, at half time, and I think Lewis Brunt did a lot more second half. I think first half he forced the play, and then second half he made overlapping runs, and everything that came his way he dealt defensively with. Everything was sound. I can see why Matt suggested a man of the match, but to be honest, if you're looking at it, probably Kalichi, for he was the difference in it. Obviously Casey McAteer making loads of runs, he was part of the goal, got onto that back stick, numbers at the back post, saved by the keeper and set up the goal. So it was good for them to get in, get an opportunity. It's always difficult as well when you're coming into with established players. These are experienced players. They've been at World Cups, they've won FA Cups, they've won Premier Leagues, etc. Then you're coming into a team and you've got to show what you're capable of, and at the same time you're against a team that are going to do everything in front of the home fans. They want a cup upset, and I thought they handled the occasion well in what I'd class as real football, the lower league football, the horrible stuff, not the pretty stuff where you're always going to play nice stuff. And I think they dealt with the occasion well and did themselves proud.
Yeah, I asked you about them before the game, Matt, didn't I? And you said it'd be interesting to see, depending on the formation, how they'd go. But McAteer was up and down that left-hand side, wasn't he, all day?
Yeah, he's an athlete, that's for sure. It was powerful as well. You know, moves well across the grass, and it looked full of confidence. I thought both of them did. They're both very assured. They've got a belief in themselves. You can see that. You know, they've obviously had that probably naturally, and they've developed it more through the years in academy football and the 23s, etc. And they've got a good reputation at the level they played at. Now it's about enhancing that reputation at the very highest level. And they've got to be patient. It's a difficult situation to be in, isn't it? You know, 'cause sometimes through no fault of your own, you don't get breakthroughs and opportunities, but they have to a level here. You know, in this competition, Premier League might be another matter, but Brendan Rodgers has got a certain amount of faith in them, and you can see why. They've got a little bit about them. They weren't put out by the situation that they were thrown into today. You know, it could have been a really testing scenario, and it was, but to a lesser degree than probably was expected. But I thought they coped admirably. Yeah, nice and positive from McAteer, as you say, up and down that left-hand flank. First half, he was probably the main danger. Vardy had that half chance, and Iheanacho clipped one wide, as Matty mentioned. But McAteer getting in at the far stick was the most likely source of breakthrough for Leicester, it seemed to me, in the first half. Less prominent maybe in the second, but I thought Brunt, Jerry's mentioned it, as did I in the commentary, that I thought he was massively influential in creating the space and being problematic. And ultimately Leicester scored from that attack when he drove forward and continued his run. It was something a little bit out of the ordinary, but he had the belief in himself to go and do that. I thought the two of them had very commendable performances, to say the least. Yeah,
it was almost the perfect game, if you like, for someone like Lewis Brunt to come in against a team that were obviously naturally going to sit back a lot more than maybe Premier League oppositions would. He then has the chance to step forward with the ball, as you say.
Yeah, to a degree. Certainly, in terms of Leicester having possession, like you say, Gillingham sitting back as far as they did. He's comfortable on the ball. He can play in midfield. He can play anywhere across the back line, and he's composed. And he's like I say, he's got that belief in himself to step forward. Now, Brendan Rodgers probably encouraged him to do so, or he did it naturally, or a combination of the two. But Soyuncu, he's decent with the ball at his feet, although not always that dependable. But he was a little bit hesitant to break forward. It was on Brunt's side. Mendy was dropping in and enable one of the centre halves to go forward. It was Brunt, and that's good. Brendan Rodgers knows he's good with the ball at his feet. He put in 6, 7, 8 deliveries from that sort of mid-right position. Well, decent balls. They weren't game changers or anything, but they decently he strikes the ball like a midfielder, doesn't he? Not like a centre half. And I like him. He's got a lot about him. They both have.
Jerry, you'll claim that you used to strike the ball like a midfielder, won't you?
I'll say nothing, Dan. I'll let other people judge how I used to strike a ball. But yeah. I wasn't bad at finding Rose Ed on occasion, that's for sure.
Were you impressed with Lewis Brunt today?
Yeah, I've seen him loads of times, Dan, like Matt in the under-21s, and he stands out like a sore thumb. I think he's got a really, really bright future ahead of him. I think it's only a matter of time before he forges his way into Leicester's first team on a regular basis, because he stands out for the under-21s. And as Matt says, he can play multiple positions. He doesn't seem to get phased. He's got a good turn of pace. He's what is he, 6'2", 6'3", lean, quick. And, we were just talking about his quality on the ball. Yeah, it probably wasn't his best performance on the ball today. And probably eased his way into the game, in all fairness. But as I said, this was not an easy tie. This was not an easy game to just come into and go, right, I'm going to take the ball by the horns and run away with this game. Not the game to do that. So he eased his way in. And then we seen his quality in the second half and that driving force that he can bring as well, i.e. for the goal. Even before the goal, I think right at the beginning of the second half, he drove all the way forward, slipped it past one or two Gillingham players. I think he got it and then got across into the box, or a shot, whatever it was. So yeah, that sort of tells you that, the guy can play football, and the guy has got, good self-belief in himself, in his ability. And I suppose the only thing is trying to find exactly where he's going to, cement the place, what position on the pitch, because I've seen him there playing right centre half today, and I've seen him in another cup game where he played centre midfield a couple of seasons ago, or a season and a half ago. So yeah, good player, good prospect.
Yeah, we've not got too much longer left, so quickly moving forward, Matty, we've got that game in the Carabao Cup on Tuesday. Huge one a week today, kicking off in about 5 minutes against Nottingham Forest away at the City Ground. So will Leicester take confidence from that today, do you think? Certainly,
there's no scares from it. Job done in terms of a performance, victory into the next round, and it puts the 3 defeats behind. It's back onto hopefully a winning run, going to Tuesday's game before even looking into Premiership. But you mentioned at the start of the programme in terms of being away from the Premiership action, it's sometimes good to be away from it when you're not getting the wins. Gone and got a win in the Cup. Now, Cup game again on Tuesday, and then hopefully get through that. Sets up nicely for a local derby next Saturday. Well, thank you very much to Matty Fryatt, to Jerry Taggart, and thanks to Matt as well. Safe travels back from Gillingham today. There's plenty more to come on LCFC TV over the coming days. Of course, we've got extra time on Monday evening. We'll be assessing this game with Gillingham, this win against Gillingham. Also, the FA Cup draw will have been made for the 4th round. So just keep an eye on Leicester's social media channels as well tomorrow. I think the draw's made around about 4 o'clock. The under-21s are in action straight after that against Chelsea. You can watch that full game, of course, on lcfc.com. Then Matchday Live, the big one, the Carabao Cup quarter-final against Newcastle. Join us from 7 p.m. for that. And there's a brand new podcast, Leicester's the Place, with Matt Elliott and Jerry Taggart, as they speak to their old buddy Steve Guppy. Another great hour's listen there, looking back on some very fond memories, I think, of that era here at Leicester City. So yeah, thanks again to Jerry, to Matty, and to Matt as well, on what's been a successful FA Cup 3rd round day for the Foxes down at Gillingham. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.